one of the biggest gaming months of the year, and it is coming up fast. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the top 10 new games of December 2021. Starting off with number 10, it's Anvil. Anvil's a pretty different looking one, actually. It's a top-down, roguelike, co-op shooter set in a pretty interesting looking sci-fi world. Now this is a game that just manages such a good art style. That's noticeable right off, but really what lands is the action. Now keep in mind, this is not a puzzle-oriented game. It is fully oriented towards the action, and in that it's really got my attention, so to speak. Now I haven't played this yet, but you see so many different types of gameplay on display. There is hack and slash, there is bullet hell, and it all looks like it retains a really good pace, at least from what I've seen. This is a game that really wasn't on my radar and just sort of appeared. I'm extremely interested in it. It has kind of a Destiny-like aesthetic, except I'm gonna go ahead and say I think that the art's actually a little bit better, and it's a type of game that I think there needs to be a lot more of, at least competently done. If this game pulls off what it looks like it pulls off, this is probably one of the best top-down arcade shooters, and I cannot wait to play it. Anvil is landing in early access on December 2nd on Steam. At number 9, it's Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Now, this is an interesting title on account every previous Five Nights at Freddy's game has had a very specific set of mechanical limitations. Those are gone. This is a first-person survival horror experience, which retains most of the elements of the previous Five Nights at Freddy's game, while giving you the ability to free roam, adding in boss battles, and various mini games as well. Now, the plot isn't like vastly different from any previous Five Nights at Freddy's game. However, there are some new mechanics, including various characters that help you, albeit with their own little quirks. And honestly, I think that it looks a lot more mechanically interesting than previous Five Nights at Freddy's games. These are fun games, but they've, like I said, always had their limitations. Those seem not to be here anymore, and it should be really interesting to see exactly how that plays out. Will it retain the quality? Were those limitations necessary for it to be a particularly enjoyable game, or is it about to grow into an even bigger franchise? Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach comes out December 16th on PlayStation 4, 5, and on PC. At number 8 is Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, which ended up getting delayed because of COVID-19. This was something we were supposed to be playing sometime last year, and promises to conclude the main storyline started in A Realm Reborn. It is not the end of Final Fantasy XIV. There will be more narratives that apparently happen. The name Endwalker is a little misleading in that respect. Now, they've made a few small battle system adjustments, as well as added PvP, and a new system called Island Sanctuary, which is meant basically to give you a little solo garden to tend. It's kind of intended to be there to have something relaxing to do, and they're also adding to the player-owned housing system. Obviously, the big draw is more the conclusion of the narrative, and I'm pretty sure everybody who is playing Final Fantasy XIV is excited for that. Endwalker lands on PlayStation 4, 5, and PC on December 7th. At number 7 is Century Age of Ashes, and this is one that we've been excited about for a little while now. It describes itself very simply as a free-to-play, multiplayer dragon battle game. Now, this is one where the trailer just had us immediately hooked when we saw it. It is more or less a dogfighting game with magical dragon powers, and the momentum that this trailer gives us and all of the ensuing video we've gotten on it, I mean, it is a game that I just cannot wait to strap in for. It is, again, free to play, so therein lies a massive advantage, and possibly the only major disadvantage. We'll see exactly how that plays out, but I'm extremely excited for Century Age of Ashes. It's landing on PC on December 2nd. At number 6 is Solar Ash. Now, this is a game that has literally nothing to do with the previous Ash-titled game. This is the second game from the Hyperlight Drifter developers, and to me, seems a lot like Tony Hawk's Pro Breath of the Wild. It takes the trademark Heart Machine art style into a large, beautiful 3D world that just at every point you can see off in the distance, you want to go see what it is. It's one of those worlds that just says, explore me, at least from what I've seen in trailers. And the traversal that you actually have available to you is this really cool sort of roller skating, speed platforming. And what's interesting is you're actually attempting to save your planet from a black hole, which all of this apparently takes place in. There is combat, apparently not a huge amount, but traversal and narrative are apparently taking the lead, and I'm pretty excited for it. Hyper Light Drifter is one of my favorite games. It is such a good example of the type of game it is that Solar Ash just gets a ton of goodwill from me right off. Solar Ash is landing on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC on December 2nd. And number 5 is Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain, which is one of those games that you take on everybody at couch multiplayer. It's a party game, and it's a party game where you get to say, hey, I'm smarter than you when you win it. Like, there's a lot of memorization games, there's guessing games, there's fast-paced decision-making games there's games that play out as puzzles. Honestly, it looks like a really fun party game. And it's one that kind of distinguishes itself from Mario Party in being more oriented towards specific types of thinking. Honestly, I love playing games like this. I actually play them with my family all the time, and I was fairly excited to see a sort of different take on this type of game. I obviously don't know exactly how good it's going to be, but it's a Nintendo game, it's a party game, and they do these types of games very well. It's part of why Switch exists, in fact, and I'll just go ahead and flex and say once again, I predicted the Switch would be a huge success when everyone was skeptical. You can go back to the video, you can hear me going, everybody's also skeptical, the Switch is going to be a huge hit. And my big brain is going to be taking on the other brains in the house in Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain on the Switch on December 3rd. And number 4 is Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun Eiko's Choice, which is a standalone expansion, which narrows the focus a bit onto one of the main game characters, Eiko. Now, just because the narrative is focused on Eiko, though, doesn't mean that the gameplay is strictly Eiko. You still have a team of specialists. It's still very stealth-oriented. You still got all the great Vision Cone type gameplay where you're doing stealth and then you're doing assassinations. Honestly, Shadow Tactics is just such a great game that I'd be happy to play new stories within the same type of gameplay over and over. This is kind of that, and I'm excited for it. I really enjoy Shadow Tactics. It's landing on PC on December 6th. And number 3 is The Gunk. This is a game where you play as a scavenger who is landing on a planet to try to gather resources and obviously make some cash. The planet you land on is like infested with this black slime substance that they end up calling the gunk. You are able to get rid of the gunk. You can remove it using this solar glove that your character has. And it seems like the narrative sort of builds out of you wanting to save the planet while your partner wants to harvest the planet. I mean, again, your scavenger is looking to make a buck, and your character gets more invested in getting rid of the gunk. Well, the gunk is seen as maybe a hindrance for the overall task of making some cash. I don't know. That's how it comes off to me anyways. What's got my interest is the sort of gunk vacuuming mechanic they've developed for this game. It's kind of silly while at the same time something that feels gratifying. Like, even just watching it, I feel like it's something that a certain type of gamer will enjoy just doing, and that will have been a mechanical sort of hook into the game. And any narrative stuff that makes you feel invested in that is going to be sort of icing on a really good cake. I'm excited to play this game. It looks really good to me. It's coming to the Xboxes and Microsoft Windows on December 16th. And number 2 is White Shadows, an extremely distinct in look puzzle platformer that takes a lot of influence from sci-fi, from steampunk, and attempts to invert a mirror on our own world. So a big pandemic has been blamed on the birds by the wolves who apparently rule over this vast city called the White City. There was a great war many years ago. It's kind of post-apocalyptic. You can kind of feel the beginning of the end of this city happening, and this game promises to be an entertaining social criticism while also providing some very interesting puzzles. Now, that could go horribly wrong. We know that social criticism doesn't always work out great in video games. Sometimes it does, like BioShock and a few other titles like it, but sometimes it doesn't. I have some pretty high hopes for this one. It's really unique looking to me. I love the black and white aesthetic. I love what it's going for. It's semi-dark, semi-cutesy, but not in the grim dark way. And if the gameplay and puzzles hold up to its aesthetic, it's really going to be something good. White Shadows is landing on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC on December 7th. And finally, at number 1, it's Halo Infinite, a game that looks like they're really doing everything they can to return to the roots of the Halo series and bring it into the next century. Now, they did so much in returning to the roots of Halo that people kind of mocked it when they first saw gameplay from it because it looked a little bit too much like an old Halo game. It seems like they've done a lot with the visuals since then, but in truth, I wasn't really too bothered by the kind of old school visuals. The visuals are not really what I'm here for with Halo. I would love an old school Halo game at this point. Now, it's pretty interesting the way they've set this game up. It's intended to kind of be open world, but it's on a Halo, so like obviously to some extent that's not the same thing as an open world. And also they have more linear environments embedded within it. What I like too is this idea they have of capturing bases which serve as fast travel points. If we see much more traditional like Halo style gameplay within this, and they don't modify things to be more like Far Cry or something, which is what that kind of sounds like, I think we're probably in for a pretty interesting ride. I mean, what else is there really to say? It's a new Halo game, it looks fantastic, and the multiplayer is free to play. I actually haven't gotten into the multiplayer. I'm kind of waiting for the single player, because that's how I've always experienced Halo. I was tempted when they dropped the beta, but I just want to do it the normal way. Halo Infinite is landing on the Xboxes and on PC December 8th. Couple of bonus games for you, including Chorus, which is kind of like a cross between Star Fox and Star Wars Squadrons, at least from what I can tell. It looks kind of 80s inspired in aesthetic, like the sleek side of it, not the more industrial side of sci-fi in the 80s. Chorus is landing on the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and Windows on December 3rd. And our second bonus game is Loop Hero, which is a strange indie RPG that was already available for the PC but is coming to the Switch. It's